The afternoon sun hung low over the prairie, sending long golden lines across the open land. Eliza Walker, a young white mother, held the reins of her small wagon with tired hands. She had been traveling since morning with her 8-year-old son, Samuel, hoping to reach the next settlement before nightfall. But their old wooden wagon was slow, and the wheels shook whenever the land turned rough. Eliza was not a woman used to long journeys. She had lived most of her life in a quiet town, far from danger. But after her husband died from a sudden fever, she was left alone with her son and a piece of land that soldiers later claimed belonged to the government. When she refused to leave, the soldiers forced her out, leaving her with nothing but a wagon, a few blankets, and her courage. Now she was moving across unfamiliar territory, following a dirt trail that crossed near Cheyenne land. She had heard stories about the Cheyenne, some kind and some frightening, but she prayed silently that she would not meet anyone today. She only wanted to keep her son safe. Just before sunset, trouble appeared. The wagon wheel hit a deep hole, and the wood cracked loudly. The entire wagon leaned to one side, throwing Samuel against the seat. Eliza jumped down and tried to lift the wheel, but she did not have the strength while she struggled. The distant sound of hooves approached. Eliza froze. Her heart thumped fast as she pulled Samuel behind her. Soon she saw a cloud of dust, and then several soldiers riding toward her. Their uniforms were dusty, their faces hard, and the way they moved made her uneasy. The soldiers stopped beside her wagon. The leader, a tall man with sharp eyes, looked down at her with a smirk. "What are you doing out here?" he asked in a rough tone. Eliza swallowed nervously. "Just traveling with my son, sir. Our wagon broke." "That is all." The soldier's eyes narrowed. "This is dangerous land. Only spies or liars wander here." Eliza shook her head quickly. "I am not a spy. I am only trying to reach the next town." But the soldier ignored her. He jumped down from his horse and walked toward her. His boots kicked dust into her clothes. He looked at the broken wheel, then at her son, then at her again. Without warning, he grabbed her arm, pulling her forward roughly. Samuel screamed and tried to pull her away, but another soldier blocked him. Eliza cried out, "Please, stop." "I didn't do anything." The lead soldier slapped her across the face, sending her falling to the ground. Samuel rushed toward her, but the soldier shoved him back. Laughing wickedly, Eliza touched her cheek. Feeling the sting and the shock, she could not understand why they were treating her like an enemy. She had already lost everything. Why were they hurting her too? What she did not know was that someone else had seen everything. Hidden behind tall grass and a cluster of cottonwood trees, Chief Red Hawk, a respected Cheyenne leader, had been watching the scene from his horse. Red Hawk had been traveling back to his camp after checking nearby hunting grounds. When he heard shouts and saw dust rising from the road, he became alert. He slowed his horse and observed quietly. What he saw made his blood burn with anger. A mother and child, alone and defenseless, being attacked by soldiers with no honor. He watched the mother fall, watched the boy cry out, watched the soldiers laugh. Red Hawk knew cruelty when he saw it. And this was more than cruelty. It was cowardice. He gripped the reins of his horse tightly. His jaw clenched as a deep sense of duty rose inside him. Cheyenne laws were clear. No one harmed innocent people on their land, not even the army. Red Hawk nudged his horse forward slowly. His long black hair moved in the wind. His eyes stayed fixed on the soldiers. His anger simmered like fire under cold ashes. The soldiers did not notice him at first. They were too busy threatening Eliza and trying to search her wagon. But Samuel suddenly looked up and saw a tall figure on a painted horse approaching. His breath caught. Eliza turned her head weakly, and her eyes widened. She did not know whether this man was friend or enemy. But one thing was clear. He had seen everything. And he was not afraid. Red Hawk rode closer, his face firm and calm, but his eyes blazing with controlled fury. The soldiers finally noticed him. Their laughter faded. An uneasiness crept into their eyes. Red Hawk stopped his horse between Eliza and the soldiers. The wind blew dust around him. But he sat tall and fearless at that moment. Everyone knew something had changed. The abuse, the fear. The injustice, it would not continue, not while Red Hawk was watching. Red Hawk sat tall on his painted horse, his strong shoulders steady and his deep eyes locked on the soldiers. The fading sunlight behind him made his silhouette look even more powerful. Samuel held on to his mother tightly as he watched the scene, unsure if this new man would bring safety or danger. Eliza slowly pulled herself up from the ground. Her cheek burned from the soldier's slap, and her legs trembled beneath her. She stared at the Cheyenne chief with fear and confusion. She had heard stories about native warriors, but none of those stories matched the calm strength she saw in Red Hawk's face. The lead soldier stepped forward, trying to hide the slight fear in his eyes. "This is army business," he growled. "Move aside." Red Hawk did not move even an inch. His horse snorted, sensing the tension. The chief's voice came out deep and steady. "You heard a woman on Cheyenne land," he said. "You will not touch her again." The soldiers exchanged nervous looks. They were not expecting anyone to challenge them, especially not a tribal chief known in the region. The lead soldier forced a laugh. "She's a spy, or worse," he said. "We'll take her in." Red Hawk's expression hardened. "She is a mother, and she is innocent," he replied. "I saw everything." Samuel peeked out from behind Eliza. His small voice trembled as he whispered, "Mama, he's helping us." The soldiers did not like being challenged. One of them stepped closer and pointed his rifle toward Red Hawk. "Back away, or you'll regret it," he threatened. Red Hawk did not flinch. He looked directly at the armed soldier. Then he spoke in a calm but chilling tone. "You point that at me again, and you will not leave here standing." Eliza's breath caught. She was terrified that a battle would begin right there. But she also felt something else, a deep sense of safety she had not felt since her husband was alive. The soldier raised his rifle higher, trying to intimidate the chief. Red Hawk moved faster than anyone expected, in one swift motion. He grabbed his bow from his saddle and aimed an arrow at the soldier's hand. His movements were smooth, controlled, and deadly precise. The soldier froze, sweat forming on his forehead. He realized Red Hawk could shoot before he even pulled the trigger. The lead soldier cursed and stepped back slightly. "We don't want trouble," he said. Though his tone was shaky, Red Hawk kept his bow raised. "Then leave," he said. "Your presence brings fear, and your actions bring shame." But the soldiers hesitated. They were too proud to retreat, but too afraid to attack. The silence grew heavy, the only sound being the soft wind brushing through the prairie grass. Eliza's heart pounded as she stood behind the chief. She could not believe a stranger, someone from a people she barely understood, was risking his life for her and her son. Suddenly, one of the younger soldiers tried to circle around Red Hawk, hoping to grab Samuel and use him as leverage. Samuel screamed, and Eliza rushed forward. But Red Hawk reacted instantly. He kicked his horse forward, blocking the soldier's path. Then he swung down from his saddle and landed on the ground with powerful grace. In one movement, he grabbed the soldier by the collar and threw him to the dirt. The soldier cried out as the air left his lungs. Red Hawk stood over him, his shadow long and intimidating. "You do not touch the child," Red Hawk said. His voice low like thunder. The other soldiers stepped back again, realizing they were outmatched, not just in skill, but in spirit. Red Hawk's presence was like a wall they could not cross. Eliza grabbed Samuel and held him close. Her tears fell silently, part fear, part relief. The lead soldier tried once more to take control. "We'll be back," he hissed, "and next time, we'll bring more men." Red Hawk stepped forward. Closing the distance, his voice stayed calm. But there was fire in his eyes. "Come back if you dare," he said. "But if you harm innocent people again, you will answer to me." The soldiers finally mounted their horses. Frustration and fear twisting their faces, they turned and rode away, the sound of hooves fading into the evening air. As the dust settled, Red Hawk lowered his bow. He turned to Eliza and Samuel, his expression softened. Though strength still radiated from him, "You are safe now," he said gently. "They will not hurt you tonight." Eliza's lips trembled as she tried to speak. Her voice finally broke through. "Why did you help us?" she asked softly. Red Hawk looked at her with steady eyes. "Because no one should be struck for being weak," he said. And because this land has seen enough cruelty, Samuel reached out to touch the chief's arm. Trusting him fully now, Red Hawk nodded and gestured toward the distant trees. "Come," he said. "My people will give you shelter." And with that, their lives began to change in ways none of them could have expected. Red Hawk led the way through the tall grass. Moving with quiet confidence, Elisa followed behind him. Holding Samuel's hand tightly, her legs still shook from fear. But she forced herself to keep moving. The air felt cooler as evening settled in. And every sound, every rustle, every cricket made her flinch. Red Hawk glanced back at her from time to time. Making sure she kept up, his steps were calm. But his mind was sharp. He knew the soldiers would not give up easily. They would return, and they would bring more men. He had to get the mother and child to safety before darkness made it harder. Samuel walked close to his mother, but his eyes kept drifting to the tall warrior ahead. "Mama," he whispered softly. "Do you think he will keep us safe?" Eliza squeezed his hand. "He already saved us once," she said, though her voice trembled. "We must trust him." They crossed a shallow stream, the water cool around their ankles. Red Hawk stopped on the other side and scanned the horizon. His brow tightened. He had lived his whole life reading the land. And something felt wrong. The birds were too quiet. The wind too still. Suddenly, faint hoofbeats echoed behind them. Red Hawk's instincts flared. He turned quickly. Signaling Eliza to hide beside the stream. "Stay down," he whispered firmly. "Do not move." Eliza crouched low, pulling Samuel close. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she waited. The hoofbeats grew louder, soldiers again, returning faster than anyone expected. Red Hawk stayed in the open, using himself as a distraction. He moved away from Eliza and Samuel, making sure the soldiers would see him first and not the helpless pair hiding behind the brush. The first soldiers appeared over a small hill. They recognized the chief at once and shouted, "There he is." Red Hawk did not wait for them to come closer. He jumped onto his horse in one fluid motion, then guided the animal sharply to the left, drawing the soldiers away from the stream. His horse kicked up dust as they galloped across the open land. Eliza watched the chase with wide, terrified eyes. Samuel clung to her. "He will be caught," he whispered. His voice shaking. "No," Eliza whispered back. "He knows these lands better than they do," and she was right. Red Hawk guided his horse toward rocky areas and sudden dips in the ground, places where a soldier untrained in the land would struggle. The soldiers tried to keep up, but their horses stumbled over uneven earth. Red Hawk circled wide, then rode back toward Eliza and Samuel. He leaned down from his saddle and spoke quickly. "We move now," Eliza nodded. She lifted Samuel into her arms and they hurried after him. Red Hawk led them toward a grove of cottonwood trees, their tall trunks forming a natural shelter. Inside the grove, he stopped and held up his hand. "Rest for a moment," he said. But only a moment. Eliza collapsed onto the grass, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Samuel sat beside her, exhausted and frightened. Red Hawk knelt beside them and reached into a leather pouch tied to his belt. He pulled out a small bundle of herbs wrapped in cloth. "These will help," he said quietly. He crushed the herbs gently and applied them to the bruise on Eliza's cheek. The coolness soothed her skin, and she felt tears gathering in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Overwhelmed by his kindness, Red Hawk nodded. "You are safe with my people," he said, "but we must reach them before night." He stood and listened once more. Tilting his head slightly, the soldiers' voices were distant now. Fading as they searched in the wrong direction. "We go," he said again. "Follow closely." They left the grove and walked deeper into Cheyenne land. The sky turned orange, then purple, then deep blue as night took over. Stars appeared one by one, glittering above them like tiny fires in the heavens. Samuel grew tired, slowing down with each step. Red Hawk noticed and turned back. Without a word, he lifted the boy into his arms. Samuel rested his head on the chief's shoulder, trusting him completely. Eliza watched with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. A few hours ago, she had feared these people. Now one was carrying her son as if he were his own after a long walk. They reached a narrow path leading between two hills. At the top of the hill, the flicker of campfires glowed softly. Voices echoed gently in the air. Safe and familiar, Red Hawk pointed. "My village," he said. "You will be protected here." Eliza's knees weakened with relief. She had never imagined help would come from strangers she once feared. But tonight, those strangers had become her only hope. Red Hawk walked ahead, carrying Samuel. Eliza followed closely, and as they entered the camp, she knew her life had just changed forever. The Cheyenne camp glowed softly under the night sky. Warm firelight danced across the faces of families gathered around their tents. Children laughed in the distance, elders spoke in calm voices, and the smell of cooked herbs drifted through the air like a gentle welcome. Elisa stepped into the village with trembling legs. She had never been inside a native camp before, and everything felt new and overwhelming. Samuel rested sleepily in Red Hawk's arms, his small fingers clutching the chief's shirt as if he had known him for years. Women looked up from their fires, curious but not unkind. Warriors nodded respectfully at their chief as he passed. No one shouted, no one came close without permission. The atmosphere was peaceful in a way Eliza had not felt for months. Red Hawk carried Samuel toward a tent near the center of the village. "This is the healer's lodge," he said, his voice calm and strong. "She will help you." Inside the tent, warm air wrapped around them. The healer, an older woman named Mourning Dove, studied Eliza with gentle eyes. Her long silver hair fell over her shoulders, and her hands moved with quiet confidence. Red Hawk carefully set Samuel down on a soft blanket. Mourning Dove touched the bruise on Eliza's cheek. "You have suffered much today," she said softly, "but you are safe now." Eliza felt her throat tighten. "Thank you," she whispered. I did not expect kindness." Mourning Dove smiled. "Kindness belongs to all people," she said. "Not only to those who look like us." Red Hawk stood nearby, watching as Mourning Dove mixed herbs in warm water. She applied the mixture to Eliza's cheek and forehead. The cool touch eased the pain instantly. Samuel, half asleep, reached for his mother's hand. She held it tightly, grateful he was unharmed. After tending to them, Mourning Dove stepped away. Giving them space, Red Hawk remained, his tall figure steady and protective. Eliza looked at him, her voice shaking slightly. "Why did you help us?" she asked. "You could have walked away." Red Hawk met her gaze without hesitation. "A warrior does not look away from cruelty," he said. "A leader does not ignore injustice." Eliza lowered her eyes, feeling a wave of emotion crash over her. "Those soldiers," she whispered. "They took everything from me. They took my land. They pushed us out. And today they struck me in front of my child." Red Hawk's expression darkened. "Many have suffered under their hands," he said. "Not only your people, but mine as well." He sat on the ground beside Samuel and gently placed a blanket over the boy. Samuel curled into it with a soft sigh. Eliza watched the tender gesture and felt her fear melt little by little. "I thought your people hated us," she admitted quietly. "That is what we were always told." Red Hawk shook his head slowly. "Hate is heavy," he replied. "Our people carry enough weight already?" Eliza nodded slowly, her mind opening to a truth she had never considered. The silence in the tent felt warm, not tense. She breathed deeply, feeling for the first time like she might wake tomorrow without fear chasing her. Outside, a group of warriors approached the tent quietly. One of them bowed slightly to Red Hawk. "Chief, we saw the tracks," he said. The soldiers spread out in different directions, but some rode south. Red Hawk's eyes narrowed. "They will return," he said. "They want control, not justice." Eliza stiffened, fear crawling up her spine again. "Will they come here?" she whispered. Red Hawk turned to her immediately. "You and your son will not be touched," he said firmly. "This I promise." Mourning Dove stepped forward again, placing a comforting hand on Eliza's shoulder. "Our village stands together," she said. "No harm will come while Red Hawk watches." Eliza closed her eyes, tears forming. "You don't even know me," she said. "Why protect strangers?" Red Hawk looked at her with a calm wisdom. "Because tomorrow You may not be a stranger, he said. And because your pain is no less real than ours, Samuel stirred awake and looked around. Mama, where are we? He murmured, his voice sleepy. In a safe place, Elisa whispered, brushing his hair gently. A place where good people live. Samuel blinked at Red Hawk and gave a small, tired smile. Red Hawk returned the smile with a soft nod. Eliza watched them silently, a strange feeling growing inside her, a feeling she had forgotten for a long time. A sense of hope as the night deepened. Red Hawk stood and stepped toward the tent's entrance. Rest, he said. I will keep watch outside. Eliza watched him go. And for the first time in months, she let herself exhale fully. She leaned back, held Samuel close, and whispered a small prayer of gratitude. Because tonight, a mother's fear had found a protector, and a chief had made a promise he intended to keep. Morning sunlight slipped through the thin walls of the healer's lodge. Touching Eliza's face with a warm glow, she opened her eyes slowly, surprised by the feeling of safety that washed over her for the first time in many weeks. She had slept without fear. Samuel still slept beside her, wrapped comfortably in a soft Cheyenne blanket. Outside, the village was already waking. She could hear women grinding corn, children running and laughing, and warriors speaking softly as they prepared for the day. The sounds felt peaceful, almost healing. Red Hawk stood near the entrance, his tall figure framed by the morning light. He had watched the tent all night. Steady and silent, when Eliza stepped out, he greeted her with a respectful nod. You rested well, he said. Eliza nodded. Better than I have in a long time. Red Hawk walked with her toward the small fire outside the lodge. Morning Dove was preparing a warm drink made of herbs and crushed berries. She offered the cup to Eliza, who held it gratefully. You must regain your strength, Morning Dove said gently. Eliza sipped slowly, feeling warmth spread through her chest. For a moment, she simply stood there, watching the village move with purpose and unity. It amazed her how smoothly everyone worked together, as if each person carried a piece of peace within them. Red Hawk sat beside the fire, his eyes thoughtful. Eliza hesitated before taking a seat across from him. She knew she owed him the truth, and she knew he deserved to hear it. Chief Red Hawk, she began, her voice soft but steady. There is something I must tell you. Red Hawk looked at her calmly. Waiting, he was a man who never rushed others. Eliza took a deep breath when my husband died. The soldiers came, she said. They said the land he left us was government land. They forced us out. We had nowhere to go. I tried to stay strong. But everything kept getting worse. Her voice cracked. She blinked away tears yesterday when they hit me. It was not the first time they hurt me. They have done it before. They called me a liar. They called me trouble. They pushed us out of towns because I tried to fight back. Red Hawk's eyes darkened with quiet anger. Not at her, but at what she had endured. You have suffered much, he said quietly. And none of it was your fault? Eliza nodded slowly. I thought if I kept traveling, I would find a place where Samuel and I could start over, she said. But instead, those same soldiers found me again? She glanced toward the sleeping child inside the lodge. I was so afraid they would take him from me. Red Hawk listened in silence, his jaw tightening. Her story echoed countless others he had heard. Families broken, land stolen, lives shattered. After a long moment, he spoke. My people have known the same pain, he said. The same soldiers forced us from our hunting grounds, burned our lodges, and struck our elders. Eliza looked up, surprised. She had never heard these truths before. The world she came from taught that the Cheyenne were the dangerous ones. But sitting here, hearing the chief's words, she realized how wrong those stories were. Red Hawk continued. Many times, they came at night, shouting orders, firing guns. We lost land too. We lost brothers, sisters, and children. A wave of understanding moved between them. Two different worlds connected by shared suffering. Eliza swallowed. I never thought that we had anything in common, she whispered. Red Hawk gave a small, sad smile. Pain has no color, he replied. Cruelty has no tribe. His words struck her deeply. She lowered her head, letting the truth sink into her heart. Samuel finally stepped out of the lodge, rubbing his sleepy eyes. He spotted Red Hawk and walked straight to him with natural trust. Red Hawk placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. Eliza watched the moment, amazed by how quickly her son had seen the goodness in this man. Red Hawk rose to his feet. "You will not face your suffering alone anymore," he said. "Not while you are under my protection." Eliza felt her chest tighten with emotion. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how to repay you. You owe me nothing," Red Hawk said. "But you must know the truth now." He turned slightly, his gaze drifting toward the hills. "Those soldiers who hurt you, they have a history. They have harmed both our people for many seasons, and they do not stop until someone stands in their way." Eliza felt a shiver run down her spine. "Will they come again?" she asked nervously. "Yes," Red Hawk answered. "They will not accept their humiliation easily." Eliza's breath caught, fear returning sharply, but then Red Hawk turned to her, his voice firm and steady. "When they come," he said, "I will be ready." His words held no anger this time, only certainty. Eliza met his gaze, suddenly aware that this chief was not only her protector, but a man carrying the pain of his people with the strength of a warrior. In that moment, she understood something deeply, something she would never forget. Both of their worlds had been wounded by the same hands, and now their fates were tied together by truth. The calm morning in the Cheyenne village did not last long, though the sky was bright and clear. An uneasy wind moved across the land. Red Hawk felt it before anyone else, a heaviness in the air that warned him trouble was approaching. He stood at the edge of the camp, eyes fixed on the distant hills. Eliza noticed the tense look on his face as she helped Mourning Dove grind herbs. Her hands paused, her heart tightening. "Chief Red Hawk," she whispered, "something is wrong." "Isn't it?" Red Hawk nodded slowly. "The land speaks before danger arrives," he said. "And right now, it speaks loudly." Samuel, who had been playing with 2 Cheyenne children, ran to his mother. Sensing her fear, Eliza hugged him tightly, her own worry returning like a shadow that never fully left. Across the camp, warriors tightened saddle straps, sharpened blades, and checked arrows. They moved with quiet skill, each understanding what might come. Red Hawk called his strongest warriors to him, forming a half-circle near the main fire. "They are not far," he said, "the same soldiers." And more with them, a warrior stepped forward. "How many?" he asked. "Enough to threaten us," Red Hawk replied, "but not enough to break us." Eliza felt a shiver crawl down her spine. She had always feared the soldiers, but knowing they were coming for her made her chest tighten painfully. She stepped closer to Red Hawk, her voice shaking. "This is because of us." Red Hawk turned to her immediately. "No," he said firmly. "This is because of them." She swallowed hard. "But if Samuel and I had not been here, they would have still come," Red Hawk said. "They come for power, not for justice." His words calmed her trembling heart just enough to breathe again. A scout galloped into camp at full speed, dust rising from his horse's hooves. He slid off the saddle and bowed quickly. "They are near," he said. Less than an hour away, the announcement spread quickly. Mothers pulled their children closer. Elders went inside their lodges, and warriors moved into position. The once peaceful village now buzzed with tense preparation. Eliza's breath hitched. She held Samuel tightly, feeling his small heart racing against her chest. "Mama," he whispered, "will they hurt us again?" "No," she said gently, though her voice trembled. "Not while the chief is here." Red Hawk approached them. "You must stay inside the healer's lodge," he instructed. "It is the safest place for now," Eliza nodded, though fear still pricked her skin like cold needles. Mourning Dove guided her and Samuel inside the tent. Placing protective herbs near the entrance, the old healer whispered a soft prayer, her voice steady even as the tension outside grew. Red Hawk stood outside the lodge, staring toward the hills, his warriors lined up beside him, their faces painted and their weapons ready. They looked like shadows of strength carved into the earth. The sound of distant drums began, not from the Cheyenne, but from the soldiers. Soldiers often used drums to intimidate, to announce themselves as if they owned the land they rode upon. Red Hawk felt his anger rise again. Soon the soldiers appeared at the top of the hill. Their uniforms flashed under the sun, their rifles glinting coldly. They formed a line, staring down at the village like wolves circling prey. The lead soldier was the same man who had struck Eliza. He smirked when he saw Red Hawk below. "We warned you," he shouted. "Hand over the woman and the boy, or this village burns." Red Hawk stepped forward. Tall and unmoving, "Your threats have no place here," he called back. "You hurt an innocent woman, and you dishonor yourselves," the soldier scoffed. "She belongs to us," he barked. "Give her up." Red Hawk lifted his chin. "She belongs to no one," he replied. "And she is under the protection of the Cheyenne." The soldier signaled his men, and they moved forward, rifles raised. The Cheyenne warriors drew their bows and spears. The air grew heavy, the world holding its breath. Inside the lodge, Eliza hugged Samuel tightly as the distant shouting grew louder. Tears slipped down her cheeks, not from fear of the Cheyenne, but from fear of losing the peace they had given her. Suddenly, a loud gunshot cracked through the air. The battle was seconds away, but Red Hawk raised his hand, stopping his warriors. His voice rang out across the plain. "We do not strike first," he said, "but we will end whatever you begin." The soldier laughed cruelly. "Then prepare yourselves," he shouted. More rifles lifted, more hooves pounded the ground. Eliza pressed her forehead against Samuel's hair, whispering, "Hold on, baby, hold on," outside. Red Hawk drew his bow with slow, steady precision. His eyes turned sharp as steel. The storm had arrived, and he was ready to face it. The air felt sharp like a blade as the soldiers advanced. Dust rose behind their horses, and their rifles pointed down toward the Cheyenne village with cold intention. Red Hawk stood firm at the center of his warriors, his bow pulled tight, his face calm but fierce. He waited for the soldiers to make the first reckless move. Inside the healer's lodge, Eliza held Samuel tightly. Her heart thudded so loudly she feared Morning Dove could hear it. The old healer lit more protective herbs, their smoke curling upward like quiet prayers. "Have courage," Morning Dove whispered. "Your fear feeds them. Your courage weakens them outside." A soldier fired another warning shot into the air. The sound echoed through the hills like thunder. The Cheyenne children hid inside their lodges. Women gathered together in silence, and warriors narrowed their eyes. The lead soldier shouted from atop his horse. "Last chance, chief," he barked. "Give us the woman, give us the child, or we take them by force." Red Hawk stepped forward alone, his footsteps steady as the ground beneath him. "No," he said simply, his voice carrying across the plain like a deep drum. "Your cruelty ends here," the soldier sneered. "Then bleed for her," he shouted, and he fired directly at Red Hawk. But Red Hawk moved before the rifle's smoke even cleared. The arrow left his bow with lightning speed, slicing through the air and striking the soldier's gun. Knocking it from his hands, the soldier cursed loudly as his weapon flew. In an instant, the battle erupted. Soldiers charged down the hill, their horses pounding the earth. Cheyenne warriors split into two groups. Moving like flowing water, they scattered in opposite directions. Forcing the riders to break formation, Red Hawk raced forward, his horse leaping into battle with powerful strides. Arrows flew through the air, sharp and fast. Warriors used their knowledge of the land, riding low, weaving between rocks, disappearing behind brush only to appear again on the soldiers' flanks. The soldiers tried to fire their rifles, but the speed of the Cheyenne made their shots miss again and again. Red Hawk charged straight toward the lead soldier, the same man who had struck Eliza. His fury burned bright, not wild, but controlled like fire in skilled hands. Each movement calculated, each decision sharp. The soldier panicked when he recognized the chief's face. He tried to reload his gun, but his hands shook. He had expected an easy capture, not a war he could not win. Red Hawk reached him in seconds. He swung from his saddle and knocked the soldier off his horse. The two men hit the ground hard, dust exploding around them. The soldier grabbed a knife, but Red Hawk kicked it away. "You struck a mother," Red Hawk growled. "You frightened a child," the soldier spat back. "She deserved it." Red Hawk's jaw tightened. A deep, ancient rage surged inside him. He grabbed the soldier by the collar and forced him down into the dust. The soldier struggled, but he was no match for the strength of the chief. "You harm the weak because you are weak," Red Hawk said, his voice heavy with truth. "You call yourself a soldier, but you carry no honor." The soldier swung his fist wildly. Hitting nothing but air, Red Hawk pinned him easily, his knee pressing onto the man's chest. Across the battlefield, the Cheyenne were gaining ground. Their arrows struck true, their horses moved fast, and their spirits did not break. The soldiers began to realize they were losing badly. One shouted, "Fall back," but chaos drowned his voice. Morning Dove stepped out of the lodge for a moment, watching the rising dust and the shadows fighting within it. Eliza clutched Samuel, trembling. "What's happening?" she asked. Morning Dove placed a gentle hand on her arm. "Justice," she said quietly. "A long-delayed justice. Back on the field." The lead soldier reached into his coat for a small pistol. He raised it, aiming at Red Hawk's head, but before he could fire, Red Hawk grabbed his wrist and twisted it sharply. The pistol dropped to the ground. Firing harmlessly into the dirt, the soldier screamed in pain, but Red Hawk responded only with cold firmness. "You will not hurt anyone again," he said. He delivered a swift blow, knocking the soldier unconscious. The battlefield fell quieter as soldiers retreated. Fear finally overcoming their arrogance, they rode back toward the hills, leaving behind their pride and their weapons in the dust. One last soldier tried to charge at the village, perhaps hoping to break through the Cheyenne line. But Red Hawk mounted his horse again and intercepted him within seconds. Knocking him from his saddle with a powerful strike, the man crawled away, terrified, before scrambling to his feet and fleeing. When the dust finally settled, the Cheyenne stood victorious. Their village was safe, their families unharmed. Red Hawk breathed deeply, letting the tension slip from his shoulders. Eliza watched through the lodge entrance as the warriors returned, her eyes filled with tears of relief. "Gratitude and awe," Samuel whispered, "Mama." "Did the chief win?" Eliza hugged him tightly. "Yes," she said. "He won for all of us outside." Red Hawk raised his hand, signaling the end of the battle. His warriors bowed their heads with respect. The chief had struck back, and he had struck with righteous vengeance. The battlefield slowly quieted as the last echoes of hooves faded into the distance. Dust drifted in the warm air, settling over broken rifles and footprints carved deep into the ground. Red Hawk stood at the center of it all, his chest rising and falling with steady breaths. His warriors gathered around him, their faces showing exhaustion but pride. Across the village, women stepped out of their lodges. Children peeked from behind their mothers, and elders lifted their eyes in silent gratitude. The danger had passed, and the land felt calmer now, like a long-held breath, finally released. Inside the healer's lodge, Eliza clutched Samuel tightly. Morning Dove gently lifted the flap of the tent and nodded. "It is over," she said softly. "The chief has protected us." Eliza rose slowly, her legs still trembling from fear and relief mixed together. She held Samuel's hand and stepped out into the clear air. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with soft orange and purple colors as she looked around. She saw the Cheyenne walking back into the village. Unharmed and strong, Samuel spotted Red Hawk first. "Mama, look," he whispered, "he's coming." Red Hawk approached them with calm steps. His posture was straight, his face composed, but there was warmth in his eyes when he saw the mother and child safe. Eliza felt a wave of emotions rushing through her. Gratitude, relief, disbelief, and something deeper she could not yet name. "You are safe," Red Hawk said gently. "The soldiers will not return tonight." Eliza nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You saved our lives." Again, Red Hawk shook his head slowly. "Protecting the innocent is not something that needs thanks," he said. "It is something that must be done." Eliza breathed shakily, looking at the warriors standing nearby. They were sharpening their arrows, tending to their horses, and speaking softly among themselves. Yet every one of them glanced at her with kindness, not judgment. Morning Dove stepped forward and handed Eliza a warm drink made of mint and healing herbs. "Your strength will return," she said, "but your heart must rest too." Samuel tugged on Red Hawk's sleeve. "Chief," he said shyly, "were you scared?" Red Hawk knelt down to meet the boy's eyes. "A warrior feels fear," he said softly, "but he does not let fear control him." Samuel nodded thoughtfully, absorbing every word like a lesson he would carry forever. As the sun dipped lower, the tribe gathered around the main fire. They invited Eliza and Samuel to join them. Red Hawk gestured for them to sit near him. The fire crackled warmly as people shared food, water, and stories from the day. Eliza sat quietly at first, unsure if she belonged. But the Cheyenne spoke to her gently, asking if she needed more blankets, offering her warm bread and berries. One woman braided Samuel's hair with small wooden beads, making him smile shyly. The warmth of the fire began spreading into Eliza's heart, melting away fear she had held for so long. For the first time, she saw the Cheyenne not as strangers, but as people with families, laughter, and kindness, people who had fought to protect her. Red Hawk watched her expressions carefully. Sensing the shift inside her, "You see now," he said. "We are not what you were told." Eliza met his eyes. "No," she whispered. "You are so much more." The fire glowed brighter as the stars appeared above them. Warriors hummed soft songs, the kind that carried stories older than memory. Eliza listened quietly, feeling the music sink into her soul after some time. Red Hawk stood and motioned for Eliza to walk with him. They stepped away from the crowd, moving toward a quiet part of the camp where the sky seemed even bigger. "Your journey was full of pain," Red Hawk said softly. "But it does not end in pain." Eliza's voice trembled. "I don't know what to do next," she admitted. "I have nowhere to go, no land, no home." Red Hawk looked toward the hills, where the last traces of daylight lingered. "You can stay here for as long as you need," he said. "My people will protect you, and if you choose to leave one day, we will help you travel safely." Tears spilled down Eliza's cheeks. She covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed by the generosity she had never expected. "Why are you so kind to us?" she whispered. "After everything my people have done to yours," Red Hawk shook his head gently. "Cruelty came from a few men," he said, "not from all." He looked at her with deep sincerity. "You came to us with fear, but you did not bring harm. That is enough." Eliza breathed deeply, letting his words settle into her heart. She felt Samuel wrap his small arms around her waist from behind. She placed her hand on his head, whispering, "We're safe now." Red Hawk watched them for a moment, then spoke softly. "Honor grows when people choose understanding over hate." Eliza nodded slowly, truly understanding the meaning for the first time. As night covered the village, the last embers of the fire glowed warmly. Eliza looked around at the Cheyenne people she once feared, but now respected deeply, people who had given her life back. Samuel leaned against her, already half asleep, and Eliza realized she would never forget this place this night. Or the chief who had shown her a new way to see the world, a world where strength did not come from cruelty, but from compassion, a world where enemies could become protectors, a world where a mother and her child could begin again. And in that quiet moment, Eliza knew her understanding had changed forever.